From nuggets to fortune, the California Gold Rush Saga. Introduction: the gold rush begins. Imagine it's 1848, and you're just an average Joe, minding your business, maybe plowing a field, when suddenly, news breaks, there's gold in them thar hills. And just like that, America is swept up in one of the biggest treasure hunts in history, the California Gold Rush. But this wasn't just about getting rich quick, it was a catalyst for change, forever altering the landscape, culture, and economy of a young nation. Buckle up, because today we're diving deep into how gold rush fever struck America and changed it forever. The spark, Sutter's Mill, and the birth of the gold rush. Our story begins in January 1848, in a remote spot in Northern California known as Sutter's Mill. Picture this: the Sierra Nevada foothills, a rugged and untamed landscape where the American frontier meets the horizon. It's here that a Swiss immigrant named John Sutter, who had ambitious dreams of building an agricultural empire, was hard at work. Sutter had already established a prosperous settlement called New Helvetia, or as it would later be known, Sacramento. His vision was grand, a self-sufficient community complete with farms, orchards, and mills that would supply the region with goods and services. Enter James Marshall, a carpenter hired by Sutter to oversee the construction of a sawmill along the American River. One chilly January morning, as Marshall was inspecting the water channel, something caught his eye, a glint of yellow beneath the flowing water. Bending down, he picked up a small nugget. It was gold. But this was no ordinary find. This was the spark that would ignite a frenzy unlike anything the young nation had ever seen. Initially, Marshall and Sutter tried to keep the discovery under wraps. They feared that if word got out, it would disrupt Sutter's agricultural plans and bring a flood of opportunistic treasure seekers to their peaceful valley. But, as the saying goes, the best-laid plans often go awry. Word spread, first through whispers among the locals, then through the bustling streets of San Francisco, and eventually across the continent. By March of that same year, newspapers on the East Coast were reporting that California was flush with gold, and the race was on. This sudden revelation of vast wealth buried beneath the soil transformed Sutter's Mill from a quiet outpost into the epicenter of a global phenomenon. People from all walks of life, farmers, merchants, adventurers, were gripped by what came to be known as gold fever. And it wasn't just Americans who were drawn to the promise of fortune. Ships from South America, Europe, China, and even Australia set sail for California, each carrying passengers dreaming of golden riches. But what exactly was it about this discovery that set off such an unprecedented rush? For one, the timing couldn't have been more perfect. The United States had just emerged from the Mexican-American War, gaining control of California in the process. The nation was in a period of rapid expansion and economic growth, and the idea of untapped wealth in the West was the perfect motivation for many to leave behind their lives in the East in search of something more. For the average person, the news of gold wasn't just a chance to get rich, it was an opportunity to reinvent oneself, to break free from the constraints of society, and to take part in the building of a new frontier. And so, with a simple discovery by a carpenter named James Marshall, the course of American history was changed forever. Sutter's Mill became not just a place, but a symbol, a beacon calling out to the restless and the ambitious, promising that with enough grit and determination, anyone could find their fortune in the hills of California. The journey west: trials, tribulations, and determination. But let's not sugarcoat this. The journey to California was no walk in the park. It was more like a grueling marathon with a hefty dose of "will I survive this?" thrown in. Whether you chose to brave the overland route by wagon, with the threat of disease and bandits around every corner, or dared the sea voyage, risking scurvy and shipwreck, one thing was clear: this wasn't for the faint of heart. Yet, the promise of gold was enough to lure people from all walks of life: farmers, merchants, even doctors, hoping to trade their old lives for a shiny new fortune. Reality sets in: the harsh life of a 49er. Once they arrived in California, they were met with a harsh reality. Mining for gold wasn't as easy as bending over and picking up nuggets off the ground, though some lucky folks did just that in the early days. Nope, for most, it was backbreaking work, involving long hours of penning in freezing rivers, digging through mountains of dirt, and a lot of disappointment. Only a few struck it rich, while others ended up spending more on supplies than they ever found in gold. Boomtowns and busts, the rapid growth of California. Despite the hardships, the gold rush wasn't just about individual fortunes. It was a goldmine, pun intended, for California's growth. Virtually overnight, San Francisco transformed from a sleepy little village into a booming metropolis. Imagine a city where the population explodes from a few hundred to tens of thousands in just a few years. And it wasn't just San Francisco, towns popped up all over, practically overnight, with names like Hangtown and Deadwood. I know, those sound super inviting, right? These mining towns were rough and tumble, where lawlessness often reigned supreme and fortunes could be made, or lost, in the blink of an eye. A melting pot of cultures, diversity, and tensions in the gold rush. Now, let's talk about the people who made this rush such a defining moment in American history. The gold rush was one of the first major events in U.S. history to draw people from all around the world. You had Americans, of course, but also a massive influx of people from Latin America, Europe, China, and even Australia. It was a melting pot before the term even existed, and while this diversity brought a lot of opportunities, it also led to tensions. Racial discrimination and violence were unfortunately common, with laws often targeting non-white miners, particularly the Chinese. This period laid the groundwork for some of the racial and social dynamics that would play out in the United States for years to come. Statehood and politics, the gold rush's role in American history. And speaking of laws, let's not forget that California wasn't even a state yet when gold was discovered. The sudden influx of people and wealth sped up the process of statehood, with California entering the Union in 1850 as a free state. This was a big deal. The balance between free and slave states was a hot-button issue at the time, and California's entry as a free state tipped the scales, adding fuel to the fire that would eventually ignite the Civil War. So, you could say the gold rush didn't just change America's geography, it changed its political landscape too. Economic boom, how gold fueled America's growth. Economically, the gold rush was like rocket fuel for the United States. The massive influx of gold helped finance new industries and technologies. It wasn't just about what was happening in California. The wealth generated from the gold rush helped spur economic growth across the entire country. It also played a significant role in the expansion of the railroad system, making it easier for people and goods to move from coast to coast. In a way, the gold rush helped to physically connect the country in ways that had never been possible before. Entrepreneurship and opportunity, the gold rush business boom. San Francisco, in particular, became the beating heart of this new economic boom. The city's port saw ships from all over the world, loaded with everything from mining equipment to luxury goods. If you wanted to get rich off the gold rush, the best bet wasn't necessarily mining, it was selling supplies to the miners. This was the era where businesses like Levi Strauss, who provided durable jeans for miners, and Wells Fargo, offering banking services, made their fortunes. The gold rush was as much about entrepreneurship as it was about gold. The dark side, impact on Native American populations. But let's not ignore the darker side of the gold rush. The arrival of thousands of settlers had devastating consequences for Native American populations. Lands were taken, resources were depleted, and violence was rampant. The indigenous peoples of California suffered immensely during this period, and their plight is an important part of the gold rush story that often gets overshadowed by tales of gold and glory. The end of an era, how the gold rush shaped America's future. As the years went on, the easy gold was picked clean, and mining became increasingly industrialized, requiring heavy machinery and big investments. By the mid-1850s, the gold rush was beginning to wind down, but its impact was far from over. Those who didn't strike it rich often stayed in California, contributing to the state's rapid development in other industries like agriculture and commerce. The gold rush may have started as a get-rich-quick scheme, but it ended up laying the foundation for California's, and by extension, America's, future. Conclusion: the lasting legacy of the gold rush. Today, the legacy of the California Gold Rush is all around us. California is one of the most economically powerful regions in the world, and its culture of innovation and diversity can be traced back to those heady days of gold rush fever. So, while not everyone who came to California found gold, they helped build a state that shines in ways they probably never imagined. Thanks for joining us on this journey through one of the most transformative periods in American history. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world. And tell us in the comments, if you were around in 1848, would you have taken the plunge and headed west in search of gold? Until next time, keep digging into history, it's full of treasures just waiting to be uncovered.